do this afternoon is share a little bit about my life and how I made it to Tufts University as a professor, and my lectures at Harvard and the trainings at the London Business School. And it was fun flying over to the UK. They have similar weather, and they even talk similar. Hey, I mean, similar accents. And it's been a journey, and it's been a wonderful journey. And at the end of my journey, we'll talk about some of the work that I do now, and at the end of that, we're gonna talk about you and some of the things that you're doing, because I've been inspired and just been motivated just listening. Make me want to change my profession. I want to put investor. Well, personally, I grew up in a city called Boston, Massachusetts. My mom married a high school, home of the world champions. For all you knew, all the haters, it's okay. Boston is home of the world champions. We always maintain at least one crown. But I grew up there. My mom married a high school sweetheart. He was a basketball star, and she was this lovely lady, and they had 2 children. My older sister, Janine, and my favorite sister, Carol. They lived in Boston. They had a nice little apartment. It was a great thing. But her husband, for a living, robbed banks. So he'd go to work, and he'd come home. They'd have dinner. Then one day he came home, and he'd take $300 to the refrigerator with a note to my mom saying, "I'm out of here. It's problems." He subsequently was arrested and sent to prison for robbing banks. A few months later, my mom meets my dad, a wonderful guy, local drug dealer. He was nice, though. And they got together, and they had 4 more kids. My older sister, Naomi, my older brother, Eric, myself, and my younger brother, Anthony, who I really do not like. It's the truth. This is a truth conference. I'm saying. If you can't be honest, you shouldn't be up here. We get along, but I really don't like him. And we lived in Dorchester section of Boston. It's wonderful, everything's great. There's only one problem. My dad had a habit of beating my mom. He thought the way of communicating was to punch her in the face when he didn't get his way. And that was just a routine thing. You come home, it's wonderful, there's dinner on the table, and you come home another time, and mom got a black eye. You come home another day, and it's pandemonium in the house. You come home the next day, we're on the way to the circus. And it wasn't domestic violence in the 70s. What it was called is handling your household. There was no such thing as domestic violence. And my mom went through it day in and day out, and that's just the way life was. And it was no big deal. And we get up in the morning, we go to school, and we play, we run around, and at the end of school, we come home. And one day on the way home from school, we get on the bus, and we're on our way home. Bus is going down the street, and all of a sudden, windows started smashing out. And behind the smashing were rocks. And behind the rocks came some names. There was 7 white kids on the corner throwing rocks at our bus. When they got done, as they was throwing rocks, they called us niggers, spare chuckers, porch monkeys. And the names just kept coming behind the rocks. And we're on the floor, we don't know what's happening. I'm in the 1st grade. What do I know about rocks and names? And when I got home, everybody's shooken up. I go in the house, and luckily I go to my dad. "Hey, Dad, who are white people?" I just met them for the first time. Why are they throwing rocks at me? And why are they calling me a nigger? And my dad looked at me. And he looked at me, and I'm waiting for like, "Yeah, okay, big guy." He's a big guy. I'm like, "Tell me." And he looked at me, then he walked away. It wasn't until I was a grown man that I finally realized, my aunt told me that when my father was a young man, he grew up in Virginia in an era when he used to walk home from school with his brothers and sisters. And the kids lined up on the side of the road, and they threw rocks at them. And when he got home to my grandfather, he said, "Granddad, who are these people? What are these names, and why are the rocks?" And my grandfather told my father, "That's just the way it is, son, run faster." So when they all moved to the north, to the wonderful city of Boston, they figured that they had escaped that part of life. For it to be revisited was probably traumatic for him, and he didn't have an answer. And for me, worse than the rocks and worse than the names was me being 10 years old, left to process this. How do I process this? Nobody told me a federal judge had signed an order saying white kids and black kids would go to school together. Nobody told me that my city wasn't in approval or agreement with this transaction the judge had ordered. I was just a kid on the way home from school. And one day they started, and it went on for a couple of weeks, and one day it stopped. And that was the beginning and end of it. Then we go back to regular. Pandemonium in the house, wonderfulness in the house. Then one day my mom got tired of the beatings, she kicked him out of the house, and that was it. So now we're in the house, no dad. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of like, how does this work? But as a 10-year-old, you don't really figure it out. It's like, he's just gone, okay. Then her her husband had come home from prison, and he still had his 2 oldest daughters with my mom. He came back to the house, and he moved in. Now, I'll say this. If I had gone to prison and my wife had 2 kids, and I came back and she had 6, I'd be like, lady, evidently while I was gone, some things went on that didn't include me. But to his credit, he moved into the house and he raised his 2 and her 4. And he was like the best dad ever. And to this day, I love him to death. He taught me how to tie my shoes. He made me take kickboxing classes. He walked us to the store. He used to come out on the street and play football with us. He was like a neighborhood dad. He'd come out and play football. Dre, your dad's cool. I'm like, yeah, you know it. And that's how life was. And then we moved to a new neighborhood because we lived in my dad's house technically, so he bought a bigger house and we got to play. When we went to the new school, they have a thing when you change schools, they test you. And they tested me when I got there, and they found out in the 3rd grade that I was illiterate. I could not read, I could not write, I could not count. But on the kickball field, I was your guy. And that's how it was. So they took me, and they put me in a room they used to call the dummy class. They might call it special needs, 766, they have a lot of wonderful names now. They just stuck us in the dummy class and they left us. It was me, Melvin, and Thaddeus, my 2 best friends. And we show up to school every day, and we sit in the dummy class, and we just have fun. No big deal. You know what I'm saying? For math, we crumple up numbers. For English, we crumple up letters. And we just played, and we go out to recess with the other kids, and it was just like a wonderful time. There was no big deal to it. It wasn't like the only kid in the class, it was a bunch of us. Then one day, my dummy teacher took a vacation. I have no clue where dummy teachers go on vacation, but she went. And while she was gone, they take all the dummy kids and they spread us out through the school and put us in regular classes. And they put me in a classroom, and when class started, the teacher came and said, everybody sit down. And I started crumbling papers and throwing them. And now she's like, sit down. I'm like, throwing some more. She said, sit down. I threw one at her. And she walked over to me. She grabbed me in my collar. Is this being recorded? Because I don't want to get her locked up. Okay, statute of limitations applies. She grabbed me in my collar. She lifted me, and she placed me in a chair. That's for you, Miss Oliver. And she said, not on my watch. I was terrified. Never before have I been grabbed like this. She had no idea I watched my mother beaten for years. No idea I had watched kids stone me, my sisters and brothers. She had no idea my older sisters used to terrorize me when my mom wasn't around. But she just said no. Then she did one of the biggest favors for me ever. She took me out of the dummy class, and she put me into her class. And she kept me all day for the rest of the year. And I'd come to school and sit with Miss Oliver. And out of fear and being terrorized, I did whatever that woman said. And by the end of the school year, I started learning how to read. I started learning math. I started learning. And it was fun. It was like nothing wrong with me. Just nobody had the time or took the time to invest in me. And subsequently, nobody explained to me my father was illiterate. So me being illiterate wasn't a big jump. So now I'm learning, I can read a little bit, my math is okay, and we just keep moving on. We get to the 6th grade, I go to public school, so it wasn't a big learning curve, so I caught up fast. So now I'm kind of like on par with the other kids, you know? 3 years is good enough. And I'm in 6th grade, and there's a new thing called girls. 5th grade, y'all were just a pain, you were a nuisance. You get on the merry-go-round and be like, push it slow. Why did you get on? We're on the basketball court, you want to jump rope, go in the dirt. What is this about? But in the 6th grade, they started getting different. They had a different look about them. They were kind of cute. So they had like little different look. Maybe it was the 8th grader's influence. I don't know, but I had my first girlfriend in the 6th grade. She chose me. She said, you're my boyfriend. I said, hey, works for me. Then she taught me what that meant. I'm like, hey, works for me. And then, hey, I'm in 6th grade, life is good, this is great. Then my mom and dad, something happened, I don't know. I come home from school one day, I'm like, hey, where's dad? He doesn't live here anymore. Okay, dad's gone. And worse than him moving out, again, nobody sat me down and said, Andre, me and your dad's not getting along, or me and your mom's having issues. I'm gonna live over here, I still love you. He was just gone. And it was no process. So here I am as a 6th grader, left to process, no dad, for the 2nd time. No big deal. But now you have single mom, inner city, 6 kids. Can anybody say CNN? You've seen this story? CNN, single mom, 6 kids. She's trying her best. She's working 3 jobs. She's trying to do everything she can. And the 2 youngest just happen to slip through the cracks because they don't have attention, the male role model. And guess who I was? One of the 2 youngest. So I managed to make it to high school somehow. When I get to high school, it was just like party land. I used to play the trumpet, and I was kind of good at it. When I got to 9th grade, nobody really reinforced that you can have a career playing the trumpet. I never heard of Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrongs, any of the Marcellus brothers. I just saw like some old white guy on the picture on the wall, and I was like, that was it. It was like, well, can you have a career playing the trumpet? I'm like, no. I put it down, and I joined the neighborhood gang. I'm like, this is what we do. Because I want new shoes. I want new pants. I want to be able to take my girlfriend to the movies. I want things. And my mom's working 3 jobs. She has a mortgage, a house, 6 kids. She can't do it. So my friends say, hey, let's go sell weed in the park. We can make money. Weed's not going to hurt anybody. Some people in here still agree with that. Weed's not going to hurt you. And so we started selling reefer in the park. Then we just escalated into criminal activity, from selling reefer to robbing people who sold reefer to carrying guns to just being bad guys. And that's just what we were. We were just bad guys, and we just got in trouble day after day. School meant nothing. The only reason we went to school is that's where we met up at, and there was girls there. But outside of that, school meant nothing. So 4 years, I just cut through school, and we just hung out in the street. And the end result was I became a full-time criminal. I eventually dropped out of high school, and I just robbed people for a living. I used to rob drug dealers. If you were a drug dealer, I'd find out where you lived, I'd come to your neighborhood, and I'd rob you. Because my thinking was you had the money. And they did. So it worked out. But eventually, I got caught for robbing people for their cars and robbing drug dealers. I didn't think drug dealers could testify against you, but I was wrong. I was wrong. They get on the stand and say, it was him. I was like, wow, how do you do that? But I thought I had a foolproof plan. You rob criminals, you're okay. No. The judge read off sentences, 7 to 10 years armed robbery, 9 to 10 years armed assault with a shotgun, 9 to 10 years armed assault with a shotgun, 10 years kidnapping, 15 to 20 years armed home invasion, 15 to 20 years armed carjacking. Then when I finished with that, they drove me to the federal courthouse, and the Fed said, hey, you're an armed career criminal. I'm like, hey, I'm 18. They said, shut up. And they gave me a from and after sentence from the state. Then they put me in a van, they drove me to the maximum security penitentiary, and they dropped me off. I'm 18 at maximum security prison. And the thing was, I was kind of happy. It's like, Dre, why weren't you scared, upset, mad? I'm like, this is where the tough guys are. I always saw myself as a tough guy. I always wanted to be a tough guy. So now I was the toughest guy for my neighborhood. I was the toughest guy for my gang. I was the toughest guy for my school. I was the toughest guy that I knew. I was the toughest guy in the county. They just put me in a state system where all the tough guys are. So I'm about to find out where I measure up, which was my goal. So as I'm coming out of Newman, my goal is to be like the #1 tough guy in this whole system. Now, unfortunately, there's like 15,000 guys already in the system. So when you come in, you're number 15,000. You go to the bottom of the list. The pecking order goes 1 to 15,000. And I'm the newest guy in, so I'm the bottom of the list. And my goal is like everybody before me to make it to the top of the heap. So I come out, I get with guys from my neighborhood. They say, what neighborhood you from? I said, I'm from Mattapan. You're with those guys. So I hang out with my guys. They hand me a knife. They start teaching me the rules. I said, this is how the penitentiary works. There's no mercy. There's no mercy. There's no mercy. Punish them, punish them, punish them. If you have to hurt somebody, hurt them beyond recognition so they'll never want to see you again. And anybody who saw it won't want anything to do with you. I said, okay, that works. And for the first 3 months, I saw stabbings, I saw riots, I saw fights, I saw pandemonium, I saw people hanging themselves. It was just like crazy. But I'm where I want to be. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm like, I'm getting it. I'm learning. I had a couple fights myself, and I won, so my ego was getting a little bit bigger. My chest is getting bigger. I'm in the gym. I'm working out every day, and that's what we did. And we sold drugs, and we extorted people, and there's a lot of business in jail. After about 9 months of being in prison, our gang had gotten a little bit out of control. So the institution comes and they locked us all down, put us in maximum security isolation. Then they shipped us out to the federal system. My friend Dominic, I think he went to Florence, Colorado, which is like the super max, which they have in Colorado. I went to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. My friend went to Terre Haute, Indiana. They just shipped us all over the country, broke us up. So when I get to Lewisburg, this is like the big time. This is like the biggest prison and the biggest system in the country. So I am officially at the top of the heap, Lewisburg. I'm like, okay, how's this gonna work? I come out into the unit, it's like a dorm, a little bit smaller than this, with just beds lined up. The first 20 days in Lewisburg, I watched 20 men forcibly raped. I watched 14 people stabbed. And there were 2 murders. Now on the rapes, it's crazy, because every night at 11 o'clock, the guards would come through, they'd do their count, and they would walk out. Then after they walk out, there's 5 guys who would climb off their bed, and they'd have a victim picked out, and they'd go rape them. And you would have to sit in your bunk. Imagine sitting in your bunk, 11 o'clock, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm gonna call my wife tomorrow, and then you hear this guy scream. He's no. But no is not an option. They didn't ask. No is just your suggestion. Then you hear him rip his clothes off, and then you hear the rest. And this will go on for about 20, 25 minutes. And you hear the whole ordeal. You're just sitting in your bunk. What do you do? What do you do? You got 5 guys with knives raping somebody. What do you do? Want to be a hero? You're gonna mind your business. I'm gonna go save somebody? Then worse than actually listening to the rape was listening to the guy moan when it was all over. And he just lay there and just moaned into the morning. He wouldn't go to sleep. He just moaned in agony. And you'd have to go to sleep every night listening to a grown man moan. And the worst part about being in that unit was every night at 11 o'clock, it was guaranteed somebody was getting raped. They did it throughout the day too. Somebody get caught in the shower, they grab them. They would grab people out of, it was crazy. But that was just part of life, and you had to toughen up. This told me, Dre, get serious. They're not playing games. So on the 21st day, I had a disagreement with a guy over the telephone. And everybody's looking at me like, well, what's Boston gonna do? He's been talking tough, he's been walking tough, how's he gonna do this? So at 11 o'clock, I got 3 of my guys, and we went to the guy's cube after the guards left, and I tried to kill a man. I piped him and I stabbed him. And the real reason I did it wasn't because I wanted to kill him. The real reason I really did it was I didn't want the rest of the unit to see me as weak, because weakness doesn't play well here. So I didn't want to be perceived as weak. So I said, hey, it's him or me, and he has to go. And the only thing they respect in this institution is murder. So I'm going to murder this man, call it a day, and I'll take whatever punishment comes with murder, because I'm not trying to have 5 guys snatch me up my bed tonight. I'd rather be here for murder. And I tried to kill the man, and luckily for me, he lived. Luckily for him, he lived. And they came and got me. They took me to segregation. They put me in a cell by myself. And my punishment for trying to kill somebody was 35 days in segregation. Then they shipped me to another prison. They let me out. And the one thing I remember about Lewisburg was it was one night, the bus came in, everybody files into the unit, and all the bus comes in. It's just like in the movies, the bus comes in, it's like 40 new guys. And there was this little white guy, couldn't have been no more than 5'3", 5'4". Little blonde-haired kid, looked like he just should have been shoplifting or something. He was skateboarding, he trespassed. I don't know how he got into federal prison. But somehow or another, this little young kid ended up in federal prison. And he came in, he got on his top bunk, and he sat with his knees to his chest. The bus came in at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, he sat on his bunk. And he sat just like this on his bunk, not moving. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And once I saw him, I said, he's getting it tonight. The whole unit knew he was the victim for tonight. He had it written across his forehead, please rape me. And I so badly wanted to go over to him and say, listen, you need to go to the front desk and tell the guards you're scared for your life, you want protective custody, and get out of here. Because at 11 o'clock, your worst dream and your worst nightmare is gonna come to pass. And he sat on that bed, and every hour, people were just walking through the unit, they're looking at him, and we all know. Everybody knows it. But I said nothing. I didn't have the courage to step outside of my box and try to save the next person. And at 11 o'clock, when the guards made their round, they snatched him off his bed and they raped him. And that's been the one that's bothered me for the longest, because I felt as though I could have done something, and I did nothing. I was more concerned about me and my well-being. What are guys gonna say to, why are you interfering in our business, Dre? Why are you over here? You're over there, stay in your own lane. And I watched another life get ruined. I go to Oklahoma, it's more of the same, riots, fights, rapes, craziness. They shipped me from Oklahoma to Memphis, Tennessee, more of the same. From Memphis, Tennessee to Talladega, Alabama, more of the same. To Texarkana, Texas, more of the same. To Terre Haute, Indiana, more of the same. Otisville, New York, more of the same. Every time I got off the plane, I wanted to make it a point. I was not the guy to be messed with at 11 o'clock. So at 5 o'clock, when I got off the plane, I found somebody and they got punished. And I wasn't grabbing little people. I made it a point. It's not him. When y'all do your little checklist for who's getting it at 11 o'clock, it wasn't gonna be Andre. You know why? Because he stretched somebody out in Newman. He stretched somebody out right in the hallway. And he beat him unmercifully. That was my entry into jails. And most likely I'd last 3-6 months. They kicked me out. I've been in riots on federal airplanes. I've been shot up with Thorazine for just going exclusively mad and can't be controlled. I've been chained to beds. I've been maced, gassed, tear gassed, beaten, stomped, whatever you want to call it, by the guards. It was just a day in the life. And eventually the federal system got tired of me. They said, we can't catch him or kill him, so we're going to send him back to Massachusetts. So they sent me back to Massachusetts. Now I'm this like iconic figure. Andre conquered the feds, Big Dre. And I come back to the state and I take my place where I was. I'm way up on the list now. I'm Big Dre. I'll kill you. Because in life, there's people who talk about it, then there's people who do it. A lot of you talk about investing, talk about going into passion chess, talk about taking lessons class. You talk about it until you're blue in the face and not do it. Tons of you have gone home with thousands and thousands of pamphlets of programs and not exercised them. They just sit in your trunk, if you even take them out of the bag. I've seen come home from conferences with giant bags of I can save the world stuff, and it never comes out of the bag. And 5 months from now, you go to empty your car, and it's like you feel guilty throwing all the stuff away. Well, in jail, there's people who talk about it, and there's people who do it. I wanted to be a doer. So I wanted to kill somebody. And that would prove the point that I would do. When I come back to the state, punish a couple people, I take my place as the rank I am, and I'm selling drugs, I'm having fun, I'm doing my thing. I had a dispute with a younger gang. They were trying to make moves and come up in the world. They had plans of being great. They wanted to run the prison like I had 5 years prior. And we had a misunderstanding. And the misunderstanding is they tried to kill me. They came to a movie theater similar to this, and 15 of them tried to kill me. They pulled their knives out, and they got in position, they roared, but they didn't really have it in them to kill me. Their plan was, we'll pull our knives out, he'll see we outnumber him, and then he'll run, and then we win. When I didn't run, they were kind of confused, like, why is he not running? So I ain't scared to die, brother, bring it. So the next day, since they had taken that step, I'm now obligated by prison law, since you tried to kill me, even though you faked attempted it, to actually kill you. So I called my mom for the 20th time. We had a code worked out. Yo, Mom, yeah, I'm going to the gym. Yeah, give me a call tomorrow, see how things are going, which meant call the prison tomorrow, see if I'm alive, and if so, in what condition. So my mom was like, okay, no problem. She's gotten that call 20 times before. I was always good about checking in with Mom. Mom, yeah, I got something to do. And she was like, okay, go do what you do. I went to the gymnasium that day, or the next morning, I had a knife strapped to my hand. And my intent was to kill all 8 of these men. And when I finished killing them, the plan was kill everybody else in the gym who I didn't like. Because in Massachusetts, 1 life sentence is no different than 50. So what's the big deal? So I got to the gym, I told my gang, listen, just stay in the corner, stay out of the way, I can do this. This ain't but 8 of them. This is easy. And they're not serious. They showed up the night before. So when they filed into the gym, I waited, and I got the leader, the guy I had the biggest beef with. I walked up to him, and I pulled out my knife, and I stabbed him in the head. And I pulled the knife out of his head and I put it in his throat. I pulled it out of his throat and I stuck it in his chest. Then he commenced to running. I pulled out his chest and I stuck it in his back. I hit him 11 times with full intent to try to murder him. Then when he got free, I grabbed one of his friends. I stuck the knife in his head. Then he broke free. Then one of the guards had managed to get into the hallway and he tried to pull me off him. And I spun around and I tried to take his head off. I chipped a piece of the wall out and I tried to stab the guard in the face. And he looked at me. I said, hey, you want the beef? Bring it. He said, know something? Finish what you was doing. I'm going this way. He said, I'm not that overly concerned about that man like I thought. And he walked away. He said, hey, that's Andre. He's on a mission. And they waited upstairs until I was done. And they were trying their best, but I'm in the gym. I'm like underground gym. And when I finished, I couldn't kill anybody. They were running too fast. They locked themselves in different parts of the building. I ended up in the hallway by myself. So I walked up to the guard and was like, listen, let me catch my breath and we can get out of here. He's like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. Put my knife down, caught my breath, cuffed up. They took me to segregation. And that was it. See, if I stab somebody in this room, it's called attempted murder. If I stab you in prison, it's called attempted murder. It does not become legal stabbing people in jail, regardless of what the movie says. So they charged me with attempted murder, 2 counts. They take me back to court, and they had me arraigned. And this time when I went to court, the TV cameras were there from the local station. Arnie Norman does it again. And the worst part about that, I was like, hey, they filming me. I'm tough. I'm the man. Was my grandmother sat at home in her house, and she saw her grandson arraigned on TV. She said, ain't he in jail? They were like, yeah, Nana, he's in jail. What's going on with him? And I never spoke to her again, and the only thing I can think of as her last image of me was being arraigned on TV for stabbing somebody at jail. I go back to the prison, they put me in segregation. I'm in segregation for 2.5 years this time. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in a little tiny cell. You come out 5 hours a week for recreation in a dog kennel. And that's what you do. And I sat in my cell, and I'm like, hey, I pled guilty. They gave me an extra 10 years, but who cares? That was nothing. And I'm plotting to do it again when I get out. And they move you through the system, through segregation. I'm just waiting 2.5 years. I do the first year standing on my head, second year standing on my head. I do push-ups, sit-ups, sleep a lot, dream, whatever. And right before I got out of segregation, some friends of mine had gotten into a riot at another jail, and they got hurt real bad. And the message came to me, hey, your boy just got hurt, man. Your boy Stan almost flatlined. So it was real easy. People stab my friends, I'm going to stab their friends. It's not like really a hard thing to come to. So I said, okay, as I'm listening to the guy tell me the story, there's 7 guys on a unit with me, they're about to get stabbed to death in my mind. I'm about to stab these guys and make it even. Because listen, I can't get away with this. And before the guy could finish his story and I could tell my guys, let's go and let's start this, God spoke to me. Now people say God, I heard it said a lot of different ways. I don't do political correctness, I call it God. If I offend somebody, I'm sorry. That's what I was taught the name was, my God. And my God said to me, Andre, don't do this. And you know it's God, because it's kind of like clearer than me standing here. He's like, don't do this. Life choice. I thought about it. I turned back, I said, yo, why are you bothering me? All my life, there's been no God. When my mother was getting beat, there was no God. When my sisters were getting molested, you wasn't around, you was busy. When they was throwing rocks at me on the bus and calling me out my name, there was no God. When I was freezing in Boston in the wintertime because we didn't have no heat, we were standing around the oven, where was you then? Where was God at all my life? When I needed a God. When I needed a God, where was you? And you're not showing up here on my behalf, you're showing up for their behalf. What about me? You ain't never been here for me. Why don't you do this? There's a church building around the corner with about 50 people on their knees praying to you. Go holler at them. I'm all right. Last I checked, on the totem board, I'm the number 3 ranking person in this prison system. I came in at 15,000. I'm number 3 now. When I stab these 7 fools, I'm going to propel myself to number 1. So if you don't mind, leave me alone. I'm okay. But God used one of Greg's traits. He was persistent. See, he was a persistent God. He must have came to one of your seminars. He got kind of like, listen. See, God be listening on your seminars, Greg. If you listen in, he's like, power of persistence. You must be persistent. So God said to me again, don't do this. Life choice. And you can only argue with God so much, like you only argue with Greg so much. He's such a nice guy. So in the end, I said, okay. Like I probably would have said to Greg if he showed up. I went back to my cell and I sat down. I didn't stab any that day. Stab anybody. I just let it go. And I sat in my cell, put the knife down on the floor. What am I going to do now? Oh, yeah, God spoke to me. There was nothing floating in my cell when I got back. There was no cloud of smoke or no mirrors or anything going crazy. I couldn't speak in 30 different languages. I was still struggling with English. And that was all it was, a dirty bed, a dirty toilet, and a dusty cell. I sat on that bed. But what it did for me was that moment of intervention was give me a chance to think. I never had a clear place to think. And I said, well, if I can't be that guy, and that's a guy I created. That wasn't really who I was. I created that guy. Who can I be? And who am I? And I sat on my bed and I thought about it. And I finally decided, I want to be a successful person. This is not successful. This is a lie that I convinced myself was success. So I said, well, where do successful people come from? College. Show of hands. How many people here went to college? I was right. So I said, I want to go to college. I'm going to be successful. So I had to think of a college. I said, well, how many do I know? Harvard University, the only thing popped in my mind. I said, cool, I'm going to go to Harvard. That works. And when I came out my cell the next day, I said, I'm going to go to college, go to Harvard, be successful, end the story. I came out my cell the next day. I see my buddies on the block. I said, yo, dudes. They said, what's up, Dre? I said, I'm out of here. They said, they're shipping you to California. I said, no, I'm going home. I said, home? Yeah, I'm going to go to Harvard University and be a successful dude. Now, they wanted to laugh at me, but I had a habit of stabbing people. So like good friends and smart people that they were, they kind of like said, Dre doesn't do drugs. What's the matter with him? And they kind of let it go. I called my mom. She said, yeah, right. Okay, sounds like a plan to me. Called my grandmother. She said, yeah, that's cute. I called my dad. He said, you going where? I'm going to Harvard, Dad. He said, you're an asshole. You're going nowhere. He said, you never listened to me. You never did. I always told you, but you never listened. Now you're talking about going to Harvard? That's from them other people. That's not us. You are where you are, deal with it, and come home. Leave that Harvard stuff alone. I got off my phone with my dad. I said, F him. Forget him. I'm going to do this. And I forget my friends. I know what I want. I said, why can't I do this? Nobody could give me a reason why I couldn't. They could tell me, don't bother. And the reasons they came up with didn't really make sense. Like, you're doing 30 years in prison, Dre. That's one reason. I'm like, okay. You're in maximum security segregation trying to kill 8 people? Yeah, I heard that one. You was on a plan to kill 7 people yesterday? Remember that one, bro? Yeah, I remember that one. You dropped out of high school? You don't even have a high school diploma? I hear you. You have no money. You're a broke black man. I said, hey, welcome to the club. And they gave me every reason, which sounded legitimate at the time, of why I couldn't go home and go to Harvard and be successful. But I chose not to believe their vision. Instead, I chose to listen to the voices that were inside of me from the past. My 3rd grade teacher, Miss Oliver, who told me I could do anything. My 6th grade teacher, Mr. McDonald, who just taught me how to believe in myself. Mr. Bevelacqua, who's just my favorite teacher because he was just like a fat, lovable guy. I hated math, but I loved him. Mr. Duvall, my drafting teacher, who taught me rock climbing and leadership. My first leadership training was my drafting teacher, Mr. Duvall. Miss Henderson, Miss Lane, who chased me through the hallways. Mr. Solis, who chased me through the hallways of high school, trying to convince me to settle down and focus on my abilities. I listened to them instead of the people standing in front of me telling me I couldn't. I went, signed up for GED classes in segregation, and I got my GED in segregation. I came out and I signed up for counseling. I had a slight problem. I thought violence was okay. And extreme violence was cool. So I went over I signed up for the counseling building. I knew I had to do this. I go over to the counseling building, I get to the building, I look in the room, and lo and behold, there's a problem. Because in prison, counseling is not mandatory for 98% of the population. The only people it's mandatory for are sex offenders. So all the sex offenders hang out in the counseling center. All the black guys hang out on the basketball court and the handball court. You know what I'm saying? The white guys hang out down by the softball field or whatever. And we have like a little segregated thing. The white guys over there, black guys over there, and sex offenders in treatment. So I went to the counseling center, it was all sex offenders. I stood outside that room and I looked in. I said, damn, do I want help that bad? Do I really want this help? And I thought about it, and it was a decision. I walked in the room and I sat down. And all the sex offenders looked at me like, what are you doing here? I'm like, don't start none, won't be none. And I sat there and I went to counseling. And I worked on my attitude. I worked on my thinking. I worked on what was bothering me inside. It was probably like a month, a couple weeks. One of my buddies was in the counseling building. He walked by, he looked in and said, whoa. Then he went outside and said, hey, Dre got one of them cases? Dre got a sex case? What's going on? In case you don't know, sex offenders are not popular people in prison. Just put that in your notebook. So if you ever get a sex offense to go to prison, don't think they're going to give you a hug when you get to the door. So I come out of the building one day, I'm walking back to my unit, and there's like 8, 10 guys on the yard. They say, Dre, we need to see you. It's my boys. They say, yo, what's up, dude? I'm like, yo, what's up? So we come from the counseling building. I said, what's going on? Come from counseling. They said, what you doing in that room? Getting counseling. They said, for what? I need counseling. They said, dude, you're the smartest dude here. You're one of the toughest dudes here. You give the best advice to anybody. What you doing in the counseling center? And what you doing with them dudes? You know who's in there. They was like, well, kind of leaning, trying to halfway ask if I had a sex case. I said, first, never do I have a sex case. Second, I go to counseling because my dad's been in jail, my stepdad's been in jail, my oldest sister's been in jail, I'm in jail, my little brother's in jail, my oldest nephew's in jail. I'm not gonna do cousins and uncles. I stab people for a living. I think it's fun. And if going in that room is gonna make this not normal, because this is not normal, and I don't want this to be normal. So if going in there is gonna make this not normal, I'm going in there. They kind of like didn't really like get it at first. So I had to say one more thing. I said, listen, in case you're confused, I just gotta tell you one thing. I'm not fixed yet. So they're like, nah, Dre, go to counseling, dude. Go on, man, get your issue on. Please, go. No, I don't want to be stabbed in the face today. Go to counseling. It is okay. And I kept going to counseling. And I worked on me. I didn't care what the masses said. I didn't care what TV said. I didn't care what the God said. I didn't care what my mother, father said. I worked on me. And then I bumped into a friend of mine who was going to counseling, going to the treatment center. He was going for like groups. I met my first mentor. Long story short, there's a guy named Natan Schaefer. Love him to death. Favorite guy on the planet. He was a Jewish rabbi, Orthodox Jewish rabbi. We met by chance, kind of like I met Greg. I met a guy, he was in the room. I stopped by to say hi to my friend. And he said, well, this little guy with like a black suit on and a hat and little twisties. I'm like, what's all this about? He said, oh, that's my friend Natan. I said, well, was there something about him? I said, well, what are y'all doing in here? They said, well, they're studying. I said, can I study with you? They said, sure. So I sat down. And I studied with that man for 3 years. Never was a thought for me to convert into Judaism or him to convert to being black. Did he understand about growing up in the hood? They do have black Jews. I've seen them. It wasn't about converting or changing. He taught basic principles of life. And he taught them from a great place of love. And I never had that type of teaching before. I never sat with that type of person before. So when I sat with him, it was just like, wow. And if he walked in the room, he taught me humility, which I'm still working on. But before him, I was just a beast. It wasn't even funny. When I get around him, I turn into like a 5-year-old. It's like my whole personality just goes. Because I just like bask in the glow of people. That was somebody's list from the passion list. I just bask in his glow. It's like, he's like unworldly. Now he just teaches me how to be me. And I loved him for it. And he stayed with me for the last 3 years of my sentence. And I made parole. He invites me to his house. I do Shabbos. I do fun. We go by. He sees my son. I bring my son by to see him. And he's still my number one mentor to this day. Biggest advocate, biggest champion. And please, on the recording, we're not supposed to see people who work in institutions outside institutions, so let that go. And he's just there for me. I can call him right now, and he'll answer the phone. He's never, ever, ever fixed his mouth to say anything slightly negative about anybody, no matter what I asked. And I asked him really hard questions. He just could not bring himself to say it in a negative format. It was always love with this guy. And that's what I got from him. So now I'm home, 14 years, state prison, federal prison, lockdowns, riots, craziness. I walk out with a GED and a sad story. Single mom, nobody loves me, my dad's a buster, you know what I'm saying? I can't read that well. And what does society care? They don't. And I came home, then I found out there's 600,000 people released this year from prison too. So I'm not even by myself. I was in a line of 15,000, I'm in a line of 600,000. These lines just keep getting longer and longer. I'm like, this is not fair, but fear doesn't matter. So I sign up at the local community college. I start taking classes. I went from the prison to the parole office to a youth center, and I did my first talk 2 hours after my release. Working with young folks, trying to explain to them that gangsterism, thuggism, prison, tough stuff is not cool. There's another way to life. And I know it because I lived it. I know it because I saw it. I know it because it touched me. I'm here to tell you the truth, not that garbage your friends are telling you. And I try to share with them that first day, 2 hours after my release. And some listen, some don't. I'm only responsible for sharing the information. Then I started working at a nonprofit with gangs. They had me out doing gang outreach. I'm in the neighborhoods 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, no gun, no bulletproof vest, no Bible, just I'm going because I care. I'm trying to stop people from dying. Some people do tutoring, some people do after-school programs, some do swim lessons. I specialize in extreme gang members who kill people. I go out and I try to convince them not to kill people for any reason. So I'm out in the neighborhoods trying to mediate gang beefs. I'm doing this for the first 6 months after I'm home. And I got the job, and the job I had is that a nonprofit was attached to a church. And there was a school in Cambridge there was a guy named Henry Louis Gates. He developed a black encyclopedia. And he wanted to make it for after-school kids, like an after-school program. So he called my boss, who happened to go to Harvard, and he said, hey, we're trying to do this program. It's about black kids in the neighborhood. We need somebody to help us with the brainstorming. So my boss said, Dre, go to Cambridge. Okay, I get on the train, I go to Cambridge. And I find myself sitting with Henry Louis Gates, who I had no clue who he was. Then Cornel West, Anthony Appiah. I'm like, these are the biggest black minds on our planet. And I'm sitting with them. And they're inviting me to different events. And they're talking to me and they know me. If they walk in here right now, they know me. I'll say, hey, Dre, how you doing? And it was just like, this is crazy. Then the phone rang from my friends upstate. Hey, Dre, what's going on out there, man? What's the latest? I said, remember I told you I was going to Harvard University? Well, I'm there. And I'm received. I'm not sneaking around in the grasses or nothing. They invite me in. It's okay, we ain't got to dodge security no more. And I go on the campus and I'm sitting with these people and they're receiving me. And they're talking to me and they're sharing with me. And it's wonderful. I found where I wanted to go and I'm there. Where do you want to go? And why ain't you there? What's in your way? The 30-year sentence? No GED? What's in your way? Because I got over my hurdles, jump yours. It's not going to be easy, but you can do it. And I've since given lectures at, as Greg said, at Harvard Divinity, Harvard School of Government, Harvard Afro-Am, Harvard Law School. I'm tired of going to Harvard. Tired. I started getting invitations to London Business School. I'm doing trainings with people that I can't even pronounce. The Deutsche Bank, Daniel Foods, Lend-Lease Construction. I'm like, who are these people? They're the biggest companies on the world. The funniest thing I say, I went to do a training in Santa Monica for Prudential Insurance. The CEO had insisted I do it. So I fly out to Santa Monica. I'm doing this training with the CEO, Jonathan Bloomer. They make $400 billion a year. I do my training, I do my speech, I do my workshop. They're blown away. He said, we have to have breakfast. I'm like, whatever. I come down for breakfast. I'm sitting with him for like 5, 6. He's like lit up. He's on fire. He's like engaged. I'm like, I got to go. I walked out on him. Nobody told me the man made $400 billion a year. Literally, his company. And I had no clue of who he was and what he represented. I just walked out. I had something else to do. I know now. In case I know better now. And if I could redo any one meeting, it'd be that breakfast meeting, because he could have underwritten anything I wanted in life. What do you want? Done. But I was clueless. I'm just doing the work that I do. And I'm out. And I'm at school outside at local community college. I worked my way up to BC, not British Columbia. Slightly cold up here. I went to Boston College. And when I'm at Boston College, I'm sitting in the back of the class, and I'm listening, I'm sharing, and we're going back and forth, and my professor was slightly off. That's where I'm going to word it today, because I'm on film. He was slightly off. And I'd routinely help him get correct. And it got to the point where the professor would say something, and I'd correct him. He'd say something else, not correct. It got to the point he would say something, the whole class would do this. And I go a thumbs up or thumbs down. Now I came home one day, I said, you know something? I want to be a professor. I teach every Tuesday and Thursday from the back of the class. What's this back of the class stuff? Why can't I go to the front of the class and do it? And I told my friends, you know what they said? You can't be a professor. Why not? You're black. Black folks don't go to college, they go to jail. He said, hey, you got a GED. Nobody knows you. You got a criminal record. And he kept listing why I couldn't do it. I said, whatever. I went back, I got my syllabus. You remember what the syllabus is? Grab the syllabus, put it down, I look at it. Week 1, introduction. Okay. Week 2, video. Week 3, pass out book, read chapter 3 to 8. Week 4, class project. Week 5, guest speaker. I said, I can do that. So I went and said, okay, I took my class syllabus and got my own and said, week 1, introduction. Week 2, book. Gave Malcolm X. What else? Week 3, video. Week 4, guest speaker. Do I know any criminals? Yeah, I think I can find a couple. Week 5, and I took my class, I wrote it up. Then I went to a place called Tufts University. And if you look it up on the U.S. News and World Report, it is the 27th best school in the nation. So says the report. And I went and I sat down with the dean. I said, I have a class here I want to teach. As if this institution is about education, if this institution is about providing the best information, my class on U.S. prisons is far the best that you're ever going to see. So what do you want to know about prison? What do you want to know? How the gangs work? How the guards work? Suicide? Rape? What do you want to know? What do you want to know about prison? A day in the life? Parole? What do you want to know? Riots, lockdown, ship-outs, Fed, state, county? What do you want to know about prisons? What do you know? Pick a subject, pick a point, any way you want, and I will tell you in detail. If there's somebody on this campus can tell you better than me, I want to meet them. Because I know this. When I walked out of that room, I was still black. I still had a criminal record, a GED, second year at BC, and I had a job as a professor at Tufts University. I know everybody's clapping, but there's a few of you out there saying, hold up. GED professor, no, doesn't work. Can't be a professor with a GED. He didn't finish, need a PhD to be a professor. Well, for you, I have to make this disclaimer. This is just for the handful that are out in the hallway, because nobody in the room fits that. My official title was visiting lecturer. The official title the school gave me is visiting lecturer. But in the hood, where I come from, on my block, my mans called me the professor. And since I did a great job. I had wonderful fun. I met a lot of students. They were paying $40,000 a year. You think your programs cost, G? $40,000 a year to sit in my class. And I had a waiting list of 80 kids. My list was like around the corner. Because the first week of class, I would say to the students, who do you want for guest speakers? Prostitute? Sure. Sex offenders? Sure. Murderer? No problem. Gang member? Easy. What gang? Crip, blood, gangster, decide what you want. Can we get, sure. And I'd bring in week 1, a heroin-addicted prostitute. Week 2, a gang member. Week 3, a serial rapist. Week 4, somebody on parole for murder. Week 5, the parole chairman actually came to one of my sessions. And I just brought in the best speakers known to man. They were like, wow, my class was like around the corner. It was like a hall. They were like, wow, guess who's coming this week? They used to like kind of like up. I noticed security kind of increased on Tuesday nights. But I didn't take it personally, you know? There was a lot of good students on campus, but I had a ton of fun. And I got to teach. And I got to design the class, I got to listen to them sorry excuses why your tests weren't done. I was sick and I was home and you're getting an F coming, girl. They're like, no, don't give me an F. So it was just a great thing. But the point is, I decided what I wanted to be. I set a course and I walked it. None of my courses were 3-week journeys. When I said I wanted to be free from prison, that was an 8-year journey. 8 years I walked, with no guarantee other than my conviction that I'd reach my goal. When I wanted to be a professor, the world said it wasn't possible. You can go online and type in Arnold Norman and say Tufts University, my name will pop up. It's possible. When I said I wanted to be a speaker, who wants to listen to you, Dre? What do you know? Who wants to hear from you? What can you teach anybody? I said, well, evidently you're not gonna be my audience. So you can get out the way. And I believe that everybody has a story. Everybody has capacity. You just have to decide to apply it. If you don't apply it, it's worthless. All the things that you're taught over these 3 days, if you don't apply them, they're worthless. You have to apply now what you want to do. Then walk it. People will tell you it's not possible. People tell you you can't do it. It's not going to happen for you, buddy. Give it up. Why are you trying to do that? Those people are the people who already given up. Those are the people who've already given up. I walked around a prison for like 8 months asking all my friends about the parole system. What do I say when I go to the parole board? How does this work? How does this work? Tell me the trick questions, the trick answers. And nobody could give me any help. It wasn't until like a year and a half later when I was home that I finally realized everybody I asked in prison about parole was a parole failure. I was asking failures on how to succeed. And it made perfect sense to me at the time. They were good people. They were my friends. I was asking failures on how to succeed. And you don't get success studying with failures. So what I do now is ask successful people, how do you succeed? Ask believers, how do you move forward? Tell me what's possible. Show me the way. Let's create something new. I've gotten calls from mayors of cities, Martin O'Malley in Baltimore, Anthony Williams in D.C., my mayor, Mayor Menino, Tom Menino, on crime reduction. I'm the guy that you call when there's a gang problem in your city and they're just shooting like crazy. You're sitting in your office scared. I'm the guy that goes out on the corner, minus the Blue Blazer. The Blue Blazer doesn't fly on the corner, by the way. It does not, or the pink shirt. I got to tell you, I understand protocol, but when I go out on the block, this is not the outfit. And I go out, and I sit down with people, and I talk to them. And I try to convince them, listen, murder is not necessary. It's really not. It's really not. And if you ever want to find out what's happening in your city, I'm going to give you one tip. One tip. I haven't taught this to anybody in the city. This is how do you figure out all the information in our city? You've only been here for 2 days. I get in my car, I drive to the seedy part of town, and I go down to like little strip malls. You find a liquor store. In front of the liquor store, you will find 2 or 3 gentlemen just hanging out. Older gentlemen, tentatively. And you grab one of them and say, hey, come on, let's go over to the bar. You buy him a drink. He'll probably be like 65, 70. And say, hey, Tommy, what's going on? Hey, it's cold out there, thanks. Can I get a shot? Sure. And he will tell you the history of the entire city in about a half hour. He knows everybody. Every person who does drugs, every person who's criminal. He's been there for 65 years just watching. And nobody pays him any attention. And he teaches me the entire information for the entire city. When I walk into the mayor's office, how does he know that? We didn't even know that. And I used to go city to city and do gang interventions. I go prison to prison and I do gang interventions. One time, Janet Reno called the office and I came to DC to sit down and do how do you transfer men from prison to work? How do you get gang members to go from prison to society and behave themselves? And somehow or another, it's just been building. And I get calls and I go. And that is what I do for a living. This is what I'm learning to do. I wanted to be a speaker. And when I ran into Greg, by chance, if you want to call it chance, the Dalai Lama might call it something else. And I'm going to hopefully get the vote so I can show up in October and he can tell me. I can get aggressive if I need to. Listen, don't make me mad. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. But and I ran into Greg, and Greg said, hey, I think you're worth investing in. And it was a blow to me that somebody who didn't know me, who has a thriving business with wonderful people, would take a chance on me. And he brought me up and let me meet with his VIP class. The people who were like in it, on it for the season, they were in it. They were like really focused. It was his top students. And he entrusted them to me, an unknown, strange black guy he met on the island. And I could have ruined this whole business. I could have did something completely crazy, and the 32 people in that room would have emailed all of you, oh my God, Greg makes horrible decisions. He brought this guy in, and he just went crazy on us. But they did a little bit more research than that, but they trusted me, and they gave me a chance, and they believed in me. And I went from my first mentor being Natan to my latest mentor being Greg. And when I see a mentor, I jump on him and I throw him in the bill. You can't get rid of me. You can't get rid of me. And since I've been here, you've seen me holding doors, carrying bags, getting coffee. It doesn't mean anything. I want to learn. I don't care if you think I'm the doorman. What you think doesn't bother me. I don't care if you think I'm the trash guy. It's okay. I'm learning. And I'm growing. And I'm only going to quote one verse from the Bible that I read. It says, who is the greatest amongst you? The servant. And that's what I try to live my life under. I don't do the whole book. I don't know the whole book. Haven't read the whole book. But that one line that said, who is the greatest amongst the people? The servant. So that's why I try to live my life in serving other people. And when I met Greg and I met Ruth, and they took the time to sit with me and help me develop and invest in me, who am I? I'm still stuck on the who am I? Why me? Then I get back to the why not me? Why not you? Why can't your dream or your idea go forward? What is in the way of your dream and your idea going forward? Somebody tell me. Why not? You can sit here conference after conference. You can sit in your car, play all the audio tapes. Why not? Why not now? The microphone's on? Cameraman, I'm about to jump off the stage. Why not now? Somebody tell me. Why can't you do your dream now? Is there a reason you can't?
No.
Is there a reason you can't do it now, Ted?
No.
Corey, is there a reason you can't do it now?
No, not at all.
Dave, why can't you do it now?
I'm doing it.
You're doing it. Graham, can you do it now?
Yes.
Promise?
Yes.
You with her?
Yes.
Hold him to it. Tell me, why can't you do it now? What is the law against doing it now? Worst case, you mess it up. Then you do it again. And you come back to another class and say, hey, I messed this up. Give me some more instruction. There can be no instruction until you take step one. Then they can instruct you on step two or how to fix step one. Can you do it now?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. You can do it? Nobody would even, no one's in arm's reach. If you're in arm's reach, don't say it. If you got the limo on your out back, you can say no and jump in your car real fast. But I have a 3-minute video that a guy did a poem for me. He's a wonderful guy. I'm not going to talk about it. We're just going to play it.
They say Time heals all wounds, and well, you done your time in dark rooms where brothers cry out and others die out under full moons that they ain't seen in years, cause ain't no clear windows here. And it ain't no real kinfolk here. It's only wounds. Only fiends and peers with the meanest fears. And in real life, you feel like your dreams is near, but reality is you just want to show that you're clean and clear and that your freedom's here. Now your screams and tears must be transferred into a means to hear the truth. And the truth is, you ain't going back. You'd much rather decide to stand and get your life on track. Ain't got no time for no gray areas. All you need is white or black, either right or wrong. You need to live and make sure that your life is long. Instead of you serving life alone with a wife at home, you'd much rather master your mind and make sure your might is strong. See, you're just another guy who's been given another try, transformed into a butterfly. So when I see you flutter by, your wings be like something I ain't never seen before. So unique, and when they get weak, God allows you to soar. And it's funny, because before, you was only a worm crawling on your belly, trapped on the floor, with your mother in the back like, Lord, save my baby, because I know that he's made us so much more. But you only saw God as a no-touch Lord, which is why the streets just seem to have so much lore. You was caught like meat in the cold cut ore, trapped like in Iraq in this endless war. But this morning, you woke up smiling. This morning, you woke up cheesing, happy to be alive, another day to die for what you believe in. This morning, you woke up smiling, not mourning or grieving about this evening, because every moment that you got for breathing seems like more than a good enough reason for you to smile. See, you are the example of a grown man transformed into an infant child. See, you're different now. You've been set free. You know, you get no credit. You're still debt-free. You've been given a designation to start a celebration, so if you can't find nothing to celebrate for, then please let me. Because this morning, the first morning in a long time that you woke up smiling, they say time heals all wounds. And well, brother, you done your time, so now your wounds are healed. And they transform themselves into wisdom.
For my boy Jason. This photo on the screen now, I've come to a place where, for some reason, people have a hard time believing that I've been to prison. I don't get it. I'm sorry that I don't have any scars across my face and I don't like limp, but I've actually been. And I tell people some of the work that I've done. I work with Janet Reno on prison transformation programs, prisoner to work programs. This is Henry Louis Gates, Cornel West, and Charles Ogletree, 3 professors from Harvard University. Cornel West actually had a record CD party and he invited me out and we were at a function at Harvard University. Andre, you really been to Harvard? Yeah, I really been to Harvard. They know you there? Yeah, they know me there. The guy in the back is the sheriff from one of the county jails. The check is for $2.5 million, and the guy that gave me the check is to the far left. His name is Ted Kennedy. And he was awarding us the check for a program that we designed and we started in Boston for helping gang members in transition out of prison. That's at the Suffolk County House of Correction. And this is what I do. I go back into prisons and I try to explain to people there is another way. I don't tell them there's another way. I try to explain to them that there's another way because they have to believe it. It's not what I say, it's what they want to learn. And this is a prison in Florida. And I go to prisons all across the country. And I go to prisons outside of the country. And that is my guy. We still live in the same neighborhood I grew up in. And people say, Dre, why do you live there? You make enough to move. I said, there's nothing wrong with my neighborhood. It was just, I wasn't putting enough into it, and you weren't putting enough into it. So I trust that the kids in my neighborhood aren't going to kill my kid. I trust that I come from a good place. I'm not trying to flee it. And my guy, that's my only one. And I trust the world with him. And he's going to do marvelous things. And there's some young folks here. This is my assistant. Saria, come on up. Where's your son? Come on, Dave, come on up. Nanny, come on up. No, come on. Anybody here under 16? Any more? Are they hiding? Now, I have to say, okay, I don't know who's hiding that, Blake. My man Blake. She did the photos for me because I did not know how to use a computer and get them on to the whatever the drive thing is called. So she's the reason for the photo. She got them up there for me. I brought them up here for one reason. They are watching you. Not what you say, not what you claim, not what you pretend, not what you email. They watch what you do. Now is the time to show them in action what you do. There's kids in your neighborhoods, there's kids in your lives, grandkids, children's neighbors. They are watching you procrastinate or they're watching you go forward. You teach them by what you do. We say we do this for our kids. We want our kids to have a better life. We want our kids to have more that we have. We want to leave them something. Well, first leave them the know-how to do. They can figure the rest of the stuff out on their own. They see you do, that is the greatest lesson ever. Have a dream, go for it, fall down. I was out with Rob the other day. He said one of the greatest things that happened to him, he went to hockey practice with his son. He fell down and he got up and he smiled at him. You're going to fall down and you're going to get up and they're going to smile at you. This is what it's about, right?